Would anybody else like to share?
As far as the news, I tried that too. I usually stick with food or other things because for a while I had Russian students and I really avoided any kind of talk about the war. And then now I have a Ukrainian student. I thought, well, this will be easier for me because I won't have to, avoid quite so much. But I found that the one time we did try to address a news article, it was just too sad for both of us because she still has family there who are in the war zone. And so I decided we just can't do that. So instead we talk about food or family or flowers or something else. But yeah, talking about the news is pretty much a mistake for me.
Good. Okay. Anything else? Why is self-reflection important when teaching?
Well, this is Kate. First of
Hi,
all,
Kate.
I apologize. I thought the start was 2:30 and I feel very badly that I missed all of the insights that were shared. But yes, self-reflection or self-awareness, if I'm understanding the topic correctly, seems very appropriate. I found that I've learned more about world history and current events since I started tutoring ESL than I had ever known in my life. I think I generally knew where Africa was, and now I've had a student from Algeria, and now I have one from Togo, and those are two completely different experiences, of course. And then I briefly had a woman from Venezuela, but she had some family matters she had to attend to. So, but during that short period of time. And as a result of that, on the one hand, I've been able to develop some custom materials for that are, or find them, that are aligned with their own history and their own. But I do agree with, I'm sorry I didn't catch her name, but the person that spoke before, you're always very aware of what's going, or you try to be aware of what's going on and try not to make any commitments. For example, if they have a particular faith tradition, you have to let them sort of, I find it's important to let them take the lead on those topics and not to, it's always what are the common themes across faith traditions more than in place of any discussions about differences. And those are always apparent by the fact that the two of us are in the same conversation, really. So, yeah, it's important.
Yeah, interesting. So a lot of like culturally responsive reflection that we need to do. It's
Yeah,
great.
yeah, yeah.
Super. We're gonna, unless anybody else has something they'd like to share. Gonna go to our next slide. Oh, so I have like a little mini lecture, and then I have some an activity for us to do together, and then you're gonna do your own activity, which is guided instruction. But before we do that, I want to do a little review. This is a review from things that you would have learned at your tutor training. So for some of you, that may have been many years ago, but I think you'll do okay on this anyway. It's always good to do a review with your students. Question number 1, what is the name of our organization? Go ahead, shout it out.
Literacy Pittsburgh.
Literacy Pittsburgh, right? So this was a really easy question. And part of that is just, sometimes easy questions are okay. As you're warming up, it feels good. Beginning of your lesson, like, I got this, I know some stuff. And then, and it primes the pump as well. Number 2, how long do we ask tutors to work with students?
Minimum 3 hours a week, 6 months before you switch.
Yes, we do ask for a 6-month commitment from our tutors and from our students so that we see progress in the students. And then my final review question, a little bit harder, but and this is something that was covered in tutor training. You may remember, you just may kind of know from your own experiences, but why is it important to talk to your students about their goals?
Well, I'd say because if you I mean, it's just been my experience, so please correct me if I'm wrong, but if you stick strictly to the materials that which are excellent, you know, the ones developed by National Geographic are excellent, but if you stick strictly to them, then you miss. First of all, I don't know how long I don't know that we could get to the 6 months. And secondly, because you lose, you know, they have so many demands in life. So it seems like it's never just about the English, number one. And Literacy Council has so many other resources available. For example, my student was just assigned a career counselor at an appropriate time. And you can bring in additional materials that align with their goals, which make it much more interesting for them and for me, quite frankly. Yeah.
Yeah. If you only use that textbook, you're going to be boring. You're both going to be bored, right? And you're going to miss things that your student really needs, for sure.
Yeah.
Why else is it important to talk to your students about their goals?
I guess because if you know what their goals are, you can guide your teaching toward achieving that goal, you know, as one of the facets of your working with them. If their goal is to get a job, then maybe the conversations and the lessons go more to being in a workplace and communicating with others that you work with. If their goal is, you know, finding a house or looking for a place to live or whatever it is, I think there's more than usually they have more than one goal, or there's an area that they feel the weakest in, and then you can, you know, ask them what that is, and that concentrate, you know, and guide your lessons and your conversations with that person toward that, you know, addressing that issue.
Right on, right on. Having that conversation so you know what's going on in their lives that you can help them with. What language do they need for whatever task they have at hand?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I would just add putting that onus on your students, right? Having them come up with their goals, think about what they are so that they are owners of their goals and they've expressed that, right? They've made that commitment by expressing it.
Yes.
Good. Okay. So we're going to take a quick look through, I'm just looking at the clock. I'm like, oh no, we're going to take a quick look through some self-reflection forms that are out there. I have 2 different forms that we're going to run through. They are both from this organization called PAIR. It's the state's adult education resource clearinghouse online. And so I have the web address down here. It's paadultedresources.org. There's a ton of stuff on there. I quite frankly get very lost on it. But that's where I got these resources both from. And I can put these in the, I'll put a link to them or a PDF of them in the chat for you in a little bit. I have a hard time going back and forth between everything. The first one that we're going to look at is this paired tutor observation checklist. This is actually a form that coordinators would use when observing tutors. That's something that we could do for you if you were interested. It has a lot of information on it. It's a lot, but I think it's a good, like, it's a good juice for us to kind of get us thinking about things. The second one that we're going to look at is for tutors to use as a self-evaluation. It's a little bit simpler, and a little bit, but also a little less meaty. So I just wanted to give you an example of both of them, and you'll see if you like one of them to kind of reference as you think about your own instruction as the year unfolds. So let's see. I'm going to stop sharing and then share again. Okay, give me how do I do this? Hold on. I want to share this one. Okay. There we go. So this is something that was created by Pear. And I'm just gonna, and it has like a ton of stuff here, like to kind of rate yourself on things. I also want to say, if a coordinator observes a tutor, and I've observed a tutor before, and I don't do all of this. I would focus on like one or two of these, and I would report back all of the wonderful things that I see that you do and give maybe one or two little suggestions. I think all of the coordinators would focus on the positive things. We're not out to get anyone. I just want to make that clear. And this is just to be used as a way to think about your instruction. It is, this form is divided into some different parts, mostly thinking about your instruction. I'm gonna, instruction materials. You can see those yellow bars. Assessment, and then other. We're gonna focus mostly on just the instruction. The materials, the assessment, are also important, but you can look at those on your own time and see if that would be one of the goals you want. We're going to focus just on instruction today. Would anybody like to read number 1 for us?
I will.
Thank you.
Tutor communicates the lesson objectives to the learner in a way he or she can understand.
So this first one is simply, do you tell your student what the objective is for the lesson? It's that simple, that you've pre-thought about what it is that you want your student to walk away with at the end of the lesson, and that you tell them what that is. Particularly for adults, they need to know that what you're doing in class is going to help them in their real life. And so by knowing what the objective, what they're supposed to walk away with at the end of the lesson, helps really focus them in on what they're learning. Could someone read number 2? Susan. I'll call on people.
Tutor starts the lesson with what the learner already knows and then builds in new skills and content at an appropriate rate.
So some of this is reviewing, making sure that you always review at your lesson to see what your student knows and remembers. Some of this is the relationship that you've built with your student, that you know, kind of have an idea of what their strengths are so that you can build off of those as you build upon instruction. Who can read number 3? Martha, would you read number 3?
Lesson activities require the learner to do more work than the tutor.
So we want our students to be active, right? Not just like a lecture like I'm kind of doing right now, but we want to make sure that they are the ones who are doing the hard work while in class with you, that they do more of the talking, that they do the reading, that they do the stuff, and they're active. Number 4. Mark, would you read number 4?
Yes. Tutor asks questions that require the learner to engage in critical thinking.
This is one I really struggle with. This is like the art of asking questions. What was that? Susan was asked. Who else was saying about yeah, it was Susan, I think. Like, it's so hard to like ask those deeper questions and get your student thinking deeper and more complex. And it's something that we're always kind of working on. But it's really important, right? That's the art of teaching, art of questions.
This is one of the areas that I kind of struggle with now with the lower level students is I don't know, I haven't been able to gauge very well what their level of as far as critical thinking is. So like I said, I kind of take baby steps and then kind of
Yeah.
go from there. That's what I'm kind of doing at this point.
And that's appropriate at the beginning with a beginning level student. Like they just need to get the vocabulary. They need to get some language in them before they're able to
Right.
show something deeper.
Right. I usually kind of give them like simple choices or I describe the pictures in the book, or that's what I like about the standout book. It's very graphic. I like as far as things like that.
Super, super. Keith, would you read number 5? But first, number 5, 6, and 7 all kind of go together. They are the 3 steps of guided instruction, which is a wonderful technique to use. It's I do, we do, you do. So Keith, if you could read number 5.
Tutor models or demonstrate skills or strategies to support learner comprehension.
Okay, so this is the first step of guided instruction. It's I do. I, the teacher, am going to show you what good is. So you're going to have a little mini lecture, you're going to have a demonstration, but it's the teacher doing the teaching, right? Doing that initial teaching. Number 6. Gary, could you read number 6?
Number 6, the tutor develops or uses activities that allow the learner to practice the target skill multiple times in different contexts.
Good. So this is we do. So I've shown you what good is, and now we are going to do it together, tutor and student. Practicing, making mistakes. It's okay, because I'm right there with you to help you through this. That's the bulk of your lesson, right? That's the active part. We do. And then who could read number 7? Terry, would you mind reading number 7?
But me again?
Gary, Terry.
Okay, sorry.
They run.
Can you hear me okay?
Is it real small?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Tutor provides extension activities or homework to target lesson skill, use, and practice outside of the classroom.
Thank you. Yeah, so this is the final part, you do. So first was I do. I'm the teacher. I'm going to show you what good is. Second is we do. Tutor and student practice together. And then the final part is you do. Student does it on their own. Right? So that's the goal, right? And sometimes that's done with homework. That's a time for them to practice and correctly the things that you did in class. And then number 8. Anybody that I haven't caught on that would like to read? I missed somebody. Martha, have you read?
Yeah, I'll read this one.
Okay.
Tutor addresses multiple learning styles by including a variety of activities that allow the learner to practice through different modes.
So this is multisensory, right? Or yeah, multisensory. We want to make sure that they see it visually. We want to make sure they hear it, that they do something with it, right? I used to be the tutor trainer, and I would always say, do you know what kind of learner you are? Are you auditory? Are you visual? Are you kinesthetic? Well, guess what? You're all of them. You need everything in order to learn. You need it in all different ways. So making sure we try to do that for our students and providing them with different things. So we're going to talk a little bit more about this. You can see, I will put links to this in the chat in a little bit, but you can look at materials, you can look at assessment. And then the other was a lot of what we were talking about, that cultural awareness and sensitivity, which is a huge part of our job. Okay. That's one. That's the like really intense one. Here, another one that I have is this is again from PAIR. It's a tutor self-evaluation checklist. This is just kind of a sample. You'll see it's a little easy, it's a little shorter, just a yes or no. You know, did I have a lesson plan? You guys are here, so I have a feeling you're all making lesson plans. Maybe you aren't though. Maybe you're winging it sometimes, and that's okay. But it's important to have a plan, to like go in and have it thought out, what you want to do with your student. Thinking about your objectives, are they clear? Are they relevant to the student's goals? Were the materials I chose relevant to the student's goals? Did I use a variety of activities? Did I incorporate activities that use different modalities, visual, auditory, kinesthetic? Was I able to assess the student's progress toward meeting the objectives? It's all about assessment, which we haven't really gotten into. And was the student able to assess their progress toward meeting the objectives, right? So giving your student a time for self-reflection as well in their lessons. And then I just love these money questions on the bottom. What was successful? Just taking the time after your lessons. What was successful about that lesson? What could I have done differently? What made it fun and enjoyable? Do more of that, right? Let's have some fun while we're with our students. I hope you're having fun. I think it's fun to work with students. What other review does my student need? What are my plans for the next session? And what's something else I want to learn so that I can improve my lessons, right? So this is a really neat check-in. I actually kind of like this one because it's a little quicker, but really prompts you to think about what you're doing. Hold up. Okay. So I will give you, maybe I'll do it in a little bit. Actually, let me put them in the chat. Okay, hopefully those PDFs work for you. Let me know if they don't. Anybody have any thoughts on them? Do you like them? Do you not like them?
I like them a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, so I came up with my top 5. And what I'm gonna go through these pretty briefly, especially for time. And you're gonna notice a lot of repetition. What I've tried to craft this time together to show all of these good things that we're talking about for good instruction. So, and repetition is part of that, right? To like learn something, you need things to be repeated. My top 5 areas for reflection of things that I could do in my lessons to make them, to tweak them and make them a little bit better. And I tried to come up with 5 simple things that you could do. These are just my suggestions. So number 5, state the objectives, right? At the beginning, how simple. You've created objectives for your lesson. Make sure you tell your student those objectives, right? Bring them in on the loop, hold them accountable for those objectives, and make it clear so they can focus. They can like really zoom in on what it is that they're going to learn for that day. Simple thing you can do. Review, 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 right? So hopefully I did that. Like here, I made a little agenda. We talked about why it's important to do self-reflection. So that was our stating our objectives. We did a little quick review, right? Kind of primed the pump, got you into thinking about your lessons and what's going on. What's going well, what's not going well. This one, we've been talking, it keeps coming up, but we haven't given it a name. Think time. Stopping and allowing your student time to think. Having some silence in your lessons is actually active time for your student. So it may feel a little awkward and clunky, but it's so important for your student. Especially if you have a group, right? To make sure everybody gets a chance to think about the answer and not just the first person who says it. I love think time. This one keeps coming up too, right? The art of asking questions. I'm going to give you another resource called, anybody know about Webb's depth of knowledge? This is like the teachery part. So there's Bloom's taxonomy, which is like a hierarchy of thinking. It's that pyramid. And that one's great. It prompts you to help your student think deeper about things.
What is it again? Sorry.
Bloom's taxonomy. But I'm actually going to show you Webb's depth of knowledge, because Webb's depth of knowledge is more about the complexity of what your student is thinking. And let's see, does this are you guys seeing my Webb's depth of knowledge stems?
No,
Okay.
just
I don't see a chat thing on my screen at all.
Okay, you don't see the chat is not popping up for you? Because I'm going to put something else in there.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, it was on more.
Okay, so I just put a third one in. These are the depth of knowledge questions, and I'm going to share them as well. Okay. So this is what I just put in the chat for you. There are 4, I'm not going to go too far into this. This is a resource for you if you would like to use it. There are different levels of Webb's depth of knowledge. The first one is just for recall and recognition. You need to know that your students are understanding what they're reading or listening to. So this is not unimportant. This is definitely still important, especially Keith, your lower level students. Your beginning level students are here. Are they understanding what you're doing in class? As they get more language, you can start going deeper. And this gives question stems for that recall and recognition. Which of the following? How would you describe? Can you recall? What is? So this is a resource you can go to as you're planning your lessons to come up with questions. As your student is ready, you can go to level 2, using a skill or concept. How would you summarize? Summarizing is one of the best questions you can ask. When all else fails, summarize it for me, right? What is an example of? How would you use? What examples or non-examples can you find to, okay? To think more complexly, you can go to level 3, requires strategic thinking. If you have a GED student or someone who's studying for a standardized test, this is where you're at. What evidence supports? How or why does the author predict what would happen? What conclusions can you draw? And I can always, if I have your name, so I can send you these in an email as well, so that you'll have them if you didn't get them now. Level 4 is much deeper. So here it requires extended thinking and complex reasoning. You're creating more things when you get to level 4. What further information would support your idea? How would you evaluate, create, design, assess, apply? Honestly, these are more like homework things to me because they're like project based almost. I think if you get to level 3, I mean, that's a pretty high level. But use this, you may find if questioning is one of your goals for this year to improve your instruction, come back to this and pick out some of these question stems to help you. Okay. Does anybody have any questions or anything? Oh, number 1. Okay, so these are my top 5. Number 1 is not really in any order, but this is just number 1 is make it visual. Particularly if you meet with your student online, make it visual. Use a PowerPoint, use a picture. Just one picture goes a long way. Is Gary still here? If Gary were here, like that, putting math problems on the whiteboard, being able to see those things, really, really important. If you're doing grammar, you need to be able to see how that structure is made. So making it visual is really important as well. But let me see, what do you want? What is missing? What do you want to add to this list?
I'm not sure how to make it visual for the things that I'm discussing, teaching Feng Wei. A lot of it is phrasal verbs and things like that. I don't know how visually I can demonstrate that to her unless that there was a conversation or from some film where people were using the terms that I'm teaching her, so I'm not sure about that.
You know what, Mark, you make me think. So I always I think finding ways to make it visual is always important. If you have an ESL student though, who's working on listening, you don't want to show them the print of it. You don't want to show them the actual script of what they're listening to, because that doesn't make them an active learner. So there may be times where you don't want it to be as visual. You really want them to listen. Or maybe a picture would help to kind of bring it together too. I don't know. It's something to think about. Susan, did you have your hand up? You had a thought?
Well, I'm not sure this would help. I mean, I do a lot of stick figures and drawings and stuff, but I also, because I'm online, I use Google function image, and I'm envisioning image to stand and then to stand up as the phrasal verb. And so that contrasts it, and depending on whether you want it in writing or hearing only, whether you put it in the chat also or not. I don't know if that helps.
And probably when I say make it visual, I'm probably really referring to making it multisensory.
Right.
Yeah. Would anybody want to add anything?
I guess I'm tempted to add balance, because I wrote down the 5 items and I started to circle the ones that I thought I could work on. And 4 out of the 5 I have circled because, and I don't teach a classroom. Sorry, that's my phone. I don't teach a class. I teach one student, and I have never had more than one. So my comparisons are from one student to the next. And it's usually, on this topic and balance, It has to do with their life, you know, how much time do they have? And so my previous student had a good bit of time. This person was not working at the time and was very motivated to use some extra time for homework and so on, because for one thing, it made her life more interesting for a period of time when she was transitioning into the country. You know, it gave her something to focus on and so on. It was something she was doing for herself. My current student is equally motivated, equally in every way, but he's working full time, and he has family commitments, and his time is just windows of opportunity. And sometimes we can only meet an hour and a half, you know, a week. And it's our common tenacity that keeps us going, our focus on his goals and so on. And so as I look at this list, I struggle with, you know, well, the plus is that he's very bright, and he has one of his other languages is French, which is very akin to English. So he gets some support from that. And so we can do some things that we might not be able to do if he didn't have that element. I don't know, I'm babbling, but it is a challenge. It is a challenge, yeah.
And I would say balancing your time as well. You can't pick 4 of these things. That's too much, right? Your brain will explode and you'll feel like you failed in all of them. So my challenge to you is pick one.
Yeah.
Pick one thing, maybe not from this list. This is my list. From your own list, pick one thing that you're going to want to focus on.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think your list is a good one, you know, and so I will have to give that some thought, because of his intellectual capability and his French background, and he came from university to the United States. We have not done as much review, you know, but we probably should do more. And we do plenty of think time. I mean, I think the pace of our time together is good. But the art of asking questions, we could do more of that, especially since now he's been retested and he's at an intermediate high level. I think that can be more in play, you know.
Well, Kate, I'm going to give you time to think about it right now.
Sure.
We're going, is everybody okay? Everybody okay? We'll go through it. I mean, this is also something you don't have to do now. You can always do it later. But as you think about what you want to do to improve your instruction, set yourself a SMART goal. So we're not thinking about your students' goals right now. You're thinking, this is time for you to think about you. And when you make your goals, you want them to be SMART. And I have a little cheat sheet on the side, but it's specific. Have you heard of these before? Have you seen these? Measurable, achievable, relevant, and I have time sensitive. The graphic has time bound. But when you think about setting a goal, and I made some, let me find my cheat sheet. You want to make sure that you set your own goals so that they're very specific. It's not like, oh, I want to do a better lesson. I want my student to understand more. I want them to learn everything. But like specifically, what are you going to do? Are you going to use a picture? Use more pictures? Are you going to maybe find a game to make it a more active, fun lesson? Are you going to reference Webb's depth of knowledge questions to help you build questions? But what is specifically, like a verb, like an action verb, what are you going to do? How is it going to be measurable? So, you know, maybe I do this, you know, like I'm ready for the next month. I'm going to pick a picture for every lesson, right? Like I can see that. I'm going to be able to measure that I've done that. Or I'm going to, you know, research 5 games and use 3 of them that I really like. And achievable. So I'm not doing 4 different things or 5 different, it's one. We can do one thing, right? We can do one thing. It's relevant. This is really going to help my student. Because I know that if I make it funner, then they're going to want to stick with it. And it's time sensitive. So maybe you do it every lesson. Maybe you just try it out for a month. Maybe you want to research it for a while and then try it later. I'm going to give you 5 minutes. Those of you who are still here. We're going to do maybe 5 minutes. What will you focus on for your lessons? I can't read it all. For your lesson improvement, right? What I challenge you to write one SMART goal for what you're going to do for your lessons, for your instruction. And I'm going to go back to this screen so you can see this. If you want to try to put it in the SMART format. I lied. I'm giving you 2 minutes. Anybody want to share anything? Go ahead, Susan. Microphone's off. Your microphone is on. There you go.
I will modify 5 depth of knowledge question stems each in levels 1 and 2 to match the day's anticipated lesson content for each of next week's meetings.
So 10 questions total for each lesson.
Yeah, because I have one student that I probably don't dare do lesson 2 and one that I might. And so I need to be able to go between both levels depending on how they react.
I think that's great. Questions take more thought than you think. Often we can't come up with them right there. We have to pre-think our questions. Mm-hmm. Super. Anybody else want to share? Martha.
We often watch a video together, like maybe a Voice of America video. And so I answer questions about vocabulary or pronunciation as we go. And my student seems to be with me that whole time, but I could allow some think time and then ask more questions after the video is over, which we don't do right now. We just go while we're working through the video, we ask questions, but I'll try to ask more questions afterwards. That's all
You
I can
know,
say.
who knows what's better? They're
Yeah,
both
right.
good. They're both
Right.
good. So it's good to kind of mix it up a little bit and see what works better for your student. I think that's a great Great thinking.
That's all.
I like it, Martha. Anyone else?
I'm gonna try to think of some, since I'm using the student edition of the conversations book because the teacher one doesn't really correspond. The questions I'm asking the student, it's very mean it's, you know, phrasal verbs and quotations, and do you agree or disagree and why? And I feel it's a kind of redundant. I go into the teacher edition, I pull some things out of there, but I'm not entirely satisfied with the book that I'm using, so I don't know what else I can do to, you know, help, you know, with her conversational skills. I mean, I guess repetition is important, but it feels a little, I don't know, there's no visual element like with the level 5 book or listening or videos or anything that goes along with it, that some variety in that.
Mark, is your student working on listening as well? Listening
What?
skills? Is she working on listening skills?
Yeah,
So Martha brought up Voice of America, which are little videos, and they have some for high level students. And I'll also send you information about Randall's ESL Listening Lab, which
Okay.
has a ton of Susan's shaking her head. It has a ton of listening activities that are short at different levels that are engaging and can prompt a lot of conversation as well.
oh, that'd be great, thanks.
Okay.
I have a couple suggestions for him. A previous student of mine, I was tutoring him to pass a Duolingo test to be accepted into a program at Pitt. And I use both of these books. This one's called Grammar Beyond Essentials, has thousands of examples in there. And then the other one was called Clear Speech. So I used a combination of both of those, and to my knowledge, he's about to test to get into this program at Pitt. And it improved his levels all the way around. I think Katie gave both of these books to me. But
Mark,
like
you
I said,
can
I
feel
don't know
free
if everybody uses these books or not.
There's supplemental books that we give out on request,
Oh,
kind of a
okay.
thing. But Mark, stop in the office because we have a whole, like behind me, I have a whole library of books. Clear Speech is definitely on this shelf. I'll have to see. We have tons of different grammar books, but I can look for Grammar and Beyond. We can talk
All
about
right,
it.
great, I'll do that.
Great, great. Kate or Keith, would you like to share your goals?
I basically added on to what I said in the beginning. I'd like to better gauge the comprehension of my student to ensure that their goals are measurable and achievable.
Great.
I just tied it into two of the elements of SMART.
Great. Thank you, Keith. Kate?
Yeah, I'm just pondering. I think I need to do two things, actually. One is I would like to do two things. From the materials that the National Geographic has provided for his his general language development. It's the Standout series, and he's at level 4, which requires much more of his own composition of sentences and paragraphs and so on than he ever had to do before. And so I think we're still working. He just began with that a few weeks ago in the holidays and so on. So I guess my goal would be to try to apply the I do, you do, we do a bit more consistently to ensure that he is using this in a systematic way. Because for those materials, I think it is important for him to work in a systematic way. And then,
Go ahead.
and then on the academic language side, which like, is it Mark that was just talking about working with the student on the 2 books, Grammar Beyond Essentials, Clear Speech. I've never seen those, but I wrote them down. I'm using some TOEFL vocabulary in this TOEFL prep book and some couple of other things. And we're creating some of our own, like a story for each of the 10 new vocabulary words that fill in the blanks and concentration games and that kind of thing. But I think there is the opportunity where I could say each week, a little more measurable for me, that each week as we absorb these 10 new vocabulary words and we create this story that they are in, that we could talk about the story and what other applications these words and the story has in terms of, critical thinking.
Great. And my thought for like the first part that you were talking about and going through the book and using I do, we do, you do, how that will affect your speed, which was one of the other things that came up at the beginning of this session about, oh, I have a hard time. Like, am I going too fast? Am I going too slow? I feel like I'm going too fast sometimes. That can kind of slow you down and stretch it out and allow them time for more practice, which is what they need.
Mhm.
Well, that's the thing I found about this level 4, because levels 1, 2, and 3, it's quite a different structure. And so the requirement it's much more time consuming to get through one unit than it was for the other levels, because he's composing material, sentences and so on. But yeah.
Well, I'm proud of you all for
Mhm.
coming out of this with a area to focus on with intention for your new year. So please let me know how it goes. Let me know how it goes.
Okay, can we leave?
You may leave at any time. I was gonna do, I'm gonna put one big plug in for the cookbook that's coming out. Please, if you and your student like to talk about food, like I'd like to talk about food, it would be so cool to have their recipe go in our one big cookbook, one big table cookbook. So you can work on that with your students.
Hmm.
I have other announcements, but I'm not going to. Anything else anybody else would like to talk about? Or you are free to go.
I just had one suggestion.
Yes.
I've attended a couple holiday gatherings, and in attendance were a couple of retired teachers. They were under the impression that to be a tutor with Literacy Pittsburgh, that you had to be bilingual.
Oh.
No.
And this is coming from 2 teachers with 25 plus years of experience. And I said, no, I'm not bilingual. I've done this successfully for 2.5 years.
Yeah.
So you might want to publicize that point, because I don't know if that's a common, like a wives' tale or what.
Interesting. And that's holding people back from being tutors.
It's holding at least 2 people back.
Yeah. Well, I hope you set them straight and let them know we'd love to have them.
That's what I told them.
Thank you.
Because they always ask me when I've seen them over the years, it's like, well, what are you doing now? Because they know I don't sit still. So, but I says, I'm still doing this. So.
Yeah.
We'll keep you busy. Awesome. Thank you. I will bring that up.
Yeah, I don't know how you would publicize that, but like I said, coming from 2 retired teachers, I thought that was kind of a point.
Yeah. I see your comment there, Mark.
I just had to, I couldn't resist, I'm sorry.
Awesome. Well, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New
Have
Year.
fun teaching.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.